Hello, and welcome to Writers Read. And you know how we start every session with Paul's poem. Let's do it. I say a line, and you say a line. Write, write, write.
Right, right, right.
Until you get it right.
Until you get it right.
Then read aloud.
Then read aloud.
You'll draw a crowd.
You'll draw a crowd.
And bring us great delight.
And bring us great delight.
Thank you. It's always good to start that way. Before we hear our writers read, I want to show you a little red book that was given to me by a very good friend earlier this week. And it's a treasure, absolute treasure. The title of the book is The Mindful Writer. The subtitle of the book is Noble Truths of a Writing Life. And this author has included 58 writers and a little thought each writer has about their writing process. It's a treasure, The Mindful Writer. And Grace, welcome, welcome.
Nice to be here.
Good, good. We're looking forward to the tip that you might have for us writers.
Well, I will tell you that my inspiration often comes from the news. So the news is my muse. Does that make sense? And once I've written something, I absolutely do edit it. I go back, and often many times. And one of the things I try to pay attention to is whether a sentence tracks from the beginning to the end, or have I lost the thought with too many words. So my second essay today had too many words, and I made some adjustments. Not sure if I whittled it down just right, but hopefully it's better than it started out.
Thank you so much. We're looking forward to hearing you.
So I have a blog. It's called Sock City Blog. The link to it is on all of my email and also in my little blurb on HH Connect. I don't write every day. And the reason I don't write every day is I spend a lot of time thinking things through before I write. And then I give it a shot and work it out. So this one is titled, Damn Those Asians. Damn those Asians. Why can't they just be ordinary? We wouldn't have to discriminate against them if they would just chill out, stop studying so much, stop practicing their instruments, stop excelling at so many things. Could their parents just ease up a bit for the sake of harmony? The elementary school I retired from in 1999 had to quit having spelling bees when a Japanese family, father living in the US but not Japanese American, started winning. To help her kids learn English, Mom drilled her first and second graders on the words on the official spelling bee list for practice. When her second grader won and the first grader came in second, the handwriting was on the wall. It was clear who was going to win for as long as they were at our school, so we just quit having spelling bees. That solved that problem. But Asians are getting more than their fair share of spaces at various elite high schools that use competitive tests to select new students. It is happening in cities across the country. Do Asian kids just study more, study better, help each other study, get punished for not studying, get rewarded for studying? What is going on at home? Or, the question no one can ask, do they have better genes than we do? Could be study habits, could be genes, could be their families have lots of books. I haven't read much about why this happens, but I know that selective high schools and K-12 gifted programs are having to change their way of doing business to get some more BIPOC kids in their classes. BIPOC means Black, Indigenous, people of color. Asians can be included or excluded depending on the circumstances. Some districts have just ended their gifted programs since they couldn't find a way to balance the enrollment. Today, every competitive school and college is having to examine its entrance requirements and change them to help equalize enrollment. No demographic group can have more or less than their share of the population. We know that colleges enroll legacy students who don't qualify through exams, and that can't change because those legacy students come from families that contribute big bucks to endowment funds. So that means other criteria will have to change. What will this mean for families who have been paying private K-12 schools that are supposed to give their kids a leg up on getting into college? All that money and no cigar? Lawsuits is my guess. The pattern of high-achieving Asian students is fascinating. Some people have even started calling Asians white adjacent because dogma says that white people call all the shots, so they will always end up on top. But here is ironclad evidence that whites are simply not at the top of the academic heap. How did we mess up on such an important element of white power? If I were a betting person, I would bet that Asian achievement is due to a combination of little genes and a big culture. I've been known to lose a bet, but that's the way I bet today. What do you attribute it to? And just in case you haven't been reading all the articles on this topic, I have a bit of data for you, compliments of Vox in 2018. Don't you just love the way that graphic data makes problems so obvious? Too bad the data cannot solve the problem. So I'll explain briefly. This is enrollment in all normal New York City high schools. This is Black, this is Hispanic, white, and Asian. And this is enrollment in their very, very selective high schools. We go down to 4% Black, 6% Hispanic, 24% white, and 62% Asian. I will leave you with that data to sort it out. My next essay is Me and Meritocracy. About the title, I've been reading the book Me and White Supremacy this week, so this title just came to mind. I still cringe whenever a speaker, much less a writer, puts herself first. Never begin with me, don't you know? Always put the other person first. But no, languages evolve, and I seem to have lost this battle among others. So just go along with me and we will get on with this essay. Following my recent rather flippant post about Asians gobbling up more than their share of merit-based spaces in elite high schools and colleges, I found myself thinking about how intractable this problem is. This quote caught my attention as I was scanning articles about these elite high schools. To build a world that is simultaneously democratic, egalitarian, and meritocratic may be a difficult task, but not an impossible one. Not impossible? I wonder. The primary solution in play at the moment would dismantle any entrance requirements that have the result of unequal admissions of racial groups, stripping schools of any claim to merit-based admissions. So as academically elite schools and colleges try to craft standards that reduce racial disparities in enrollment, it seems that a first step is to consider whether or not programs exclusively for high-achieving students have merit. Do they provide a public good as well as a private good? Is there any merit in meritocracy? Yes? No? Examples. 1, could we have produced COVID vaccines in less than a year if we didn't have programs for students with exceptional abilities? 2, I may look fine to you, but I am 100% dependent for every beat of my heart on a pacemaker. It doesn't just kick in now and then. My heart is there, but my heart does nothing without a jolt. Thank you, smart people. 3, you may or may not value our exploration of space, but I am just dumbstruck by photos of the vastness of space beyond our solar system. I am so glad to be living during the time when I can see stars beyond stars. And what about safety features in new cars? My new car beeps louder and faster with increasing urgency as I approach things behind me. I love that, but I could not have invented that feature. I'm glad someone with some super math and engineering skills did so. Bottom line, I think merit has some merit. Could merit be overrated? Yes. For example, I think test scores are overrated. People are so concerned about the abundance of whites and Asians at selective high schools that they're busy scrutinizing the tests that are used to screen students. The tests that have been designed to screen students for the elite schools are not, it seems, always best at predicting success in school or after graduation. Schools could certainly make changes that might open up more spaces for young women or Black and brown students. But even focusing on income could net more Asians because low-income Asians often have good test scores. Yep, true. The one change that absolutely would rebalance enrollment by race and sex is to simply allocate spaces for males, for females, for white students, for Black students, for Latinos, for Native Americans. This is called affirmative action, and it generally results in disadvantaging high-achieving white and Asian students. We did this in the past. It was the norm for both schools and in the workplace. After the civil rights era of the 50s and 60s, affirmative action was a tool to help balance things out. There was never a time when everyone was on board with this, but it continued until elections and court cases began to limit its use. Another thing that contributed to the downfall of affirmative action was increasing evidence that it could work to the disadvantage of people who were supposed to benefit from it. A study of affirmative action compared outcomes of Black students who enrolled in the University of California system during the era of affirmative action and again after it was discontinued. It showed that students granted admission despite not meeting all of the criteria of the various schools, did not always do well. After the end of affirmative action, students ended up at schools better matched to their abilities and did well. They graduated confident of their abilities rather than feeling as if they just didn't measure up. They could and did do well in job interviews. They got jobs and did well. The sky did not fall, and I bet their kids will do even better. I am not versed in the totality of research on affirmative action, but that bit of information rings true for me. And it brings me back to my reflections on meritocracy. It seems as if we've come to regard the top rung of the ladder as the only rung worth clinging to. How silly. Imagine a ladder with only the top rung. Useless, simply useless. Although I would agree that many students in our K-12 system have what it takes to do better academically, we just have not found the magic to help them all. Lots of factors play into this failure, I am sure. Poverty, chaos at home, lack of role models, neighborhood culture, and programs that focus on schools and not homes that kids come from. I am all for putting more imagination and effort into helping all kids achieve proficiency in reading, math, and other subjects. That said, I think we also need to think harder about that ladder with only a top rung. Remember my new car that beeps as I get close to backing into things? Imagine a car that beeps from every angle, some do so now, but has no windshield wipers or cup holders. Someone needs to invent those things too, and someone needs to package them, sell them, ship them to stores or directly to you. I'm guessing it didn't take the top tier engineer to design the wipers or the cup holders. Yes, the materials engineer was key, but using the materials in new ways could be done by people who love tinkering but didn't ace every exam of every class. Remember the push to crank out ventilators at the beginning of the COVID pandemic? We did it. We made so many ventilators, but before they arrived, hospital staff struggling to help patients learned that turning patients to a prone position helped them breathe. Maybe we needed the top 1% to invent faster ways of making ventilators, but a caring, curious RN or respiratory therapist who was smart, but maybe not the 1% smart, was free to say, let's try this. It's helped other patients. Maybe it will help COVID patients. While mulling over the situation of the ladder with one rung, I found myself reminiscing about a class of students I had over 30 years ago. I didn't teach regular classes often during my career, but one year I was blessed with an amazing class of 4th and 5th graders, or 5th and 6th, sorry, two different groups. This group included 3 students who had tested into the gifted program, but elected to stay in regular classes. One had tested into the 1%, meaning that he could have attended a special school in the district. His parents really wanted him to go there and asked me to encourage him to do so. The first time I asked him about his choice to stay where he was, he very clearly and emphatically said he had no interest in that program. He didn't want to have to focus on achievement. He didn't want to compete. He didn't want to strive to be the best at anything. He enjoyed school as it was. He liked his friends. He was just fine, thank you. And could I please just not talk about it anymore? Okay, I didn't. He didn't shirk his assignments. He wrote well and turned in admirable work in all subjects. But he was right. He seemed to enjoy learning, but he also enjoyed his friends. He participated as his interests dictated. He seemed fine with the notion that he might not be putting himself on track for elite colleges. I think he'd have done fine in the 1% program, but maybe his enthusiasm would have dimmed in that situation. In any event, I hope we will allow kids to find success on lower rungs of the ladder. If kids are happy in their elite schools, I am all for that. But there are so many ways to do well in life, even if SAT scores are below 1575. Could we please allow for that possibility? Remember a year ago when we were suddenly discovering how many people earning ordinary wages in invisible jobs were now essential workers? Let's not forget that lesson. I think it was one of the most important things we learned during the pandemic. We need lots of people doing jobs we don't even think about. I doubt that we can even out the elite admissions challenge while maintaining merit as an important value anytime soon. Some of what's happening with our Asian students is likely due to new immigrant energy, a factor that often evens out after 2 or 3 generations. Perhaps we should let them have their day while we focus on helping underachieving groups in lower grades. And by the way, who says Asians don't count for diversity scores? Just look at the amazing diversity within the very broad category of Asian. Are we paying any attention to that? Are all Asians doing well? Or if we look more closely, are we ignoring some Asian kids who need more support while focusing on the top of the heap? All of this leads me to my last observation. More and more people are refusing to check any box for race or ethnicity. Bravo, I say. Let's help families and kids who need help. Support kids who are acing their exams, and try to make sure that we respect people on all rungs of the ladder.
Oh, Grace, thank you so much. You have given us food for thought, is what I'm going to call it.
And you
Food for
can
thought.
comment by reading my blog and commenting.
Oh,
So you can sass me if you want, or
okay, that was an invitation
yes.
to comment. Thank you, Grace. Okay. And here comes our good friend, Ina Bray. We're looking so forward to this, Ina. I'm so pleased that you're sharing some more of your story.
Thank you.
It's such a gift to all of us, Ina. Yeah, that's a wise idea, a little sip of water. There's the green light, and we're getting ready.
green.
Yep,
It's
you're
ready.
good.
All right.
Okay, I checked with Ina before we started to make sure she felt comfortable giving us a writer's tip, and she
Writer's-
agreed.
Well, it's very difficult to have a writer's tip when each writer is different, has a different approach. My writing is when I'm inspired, and it may be months before I sit down at the computer, or I may listen to something like Grace and go home and write something down. But so far, over many years, my focus has been to give my story and allow particularly my daughters, to realize why I was the mother I was. I was not an American mother. I didn't have American role models. So what honed me into the human being, into the mother that I was? But also at the same time, I wanted the wider world, basically, to realize that war is not just a time period when two armies shoot at each other or throw bombs at each other. It goes on and on, even after all of that has stopped. And what effect does it have on those with whom we associate, no matter on what, in which part of the world? So I write as something comes to me, and then I write and rewrite, and to the last minute I still see things that could be polished, maybe.
Okay, thank you, Ina, for sharing that with us.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for inviting me. This is a story of a memory, again, memoir. Memory when I was roughly 10 years old. This was at the very end of the Second World War. It had not finished yet, but it was already coming within days to the end. I titled it Dachau and My Father. The Second World War was still unwinding somewhere in eastern Bavaria when my father, Josef Bertulis, was recruited to help move prisoners out of the Dachau concentration camp. I was 10 years old at the time, but oh how clearly I still see my father on those sunny, now silent dawn mornings in early May as he was going to work. On his rickety old bicycle, after a hug and a quick wave, he would take off to ride to the train station in Ismaning. This is outside Munich, where we lived. And then on to Dachau, a distance of some 20 miles. Then in late afternoon, I would wait by the gate and watched as he dragged himself home, drained, devastated, and crumbled, just like his old bicycle. The exuberance and fragrance of the blossoms in the orchard around us, they wanted to cheer us, to send us a message that the season indeed was promising a new beginning, both for nature and for us humans. But my father's hunched over shoulders, his ashen-colored and suddenly aged face, each afternoon spoke of something else. Dachau, the name of a medieval town northwest of Munich and of a concentration camp nearby, will symbolize the barbarity of Hitler's Reich forever. The Nazi government had established the camp in 1933 for German political prisoners, but quickly it evolved into a camp that also housed political undesirables of some 30 nationalities and Jews, forced laborers of many backgrounds, and eventually German and Austrian common criminals. Hundreds of thousands had died there of hunger, of disease, of brutality. But by the time the American forces freed the camp on April 29, 1945, some 30,000 prisoners were still alive. My father never told us specifically how he became involved in this liberating operation, which for him lasted only several days. But since at the war's end, the Allied forces interviewed and registered all inhabitants of Germany, my father's knowledge of languages, Lithuanian, Russian, Latvian, Polish, German, some Ukrainian, and Latin, he was going to be a priest, but no English. That, no doubt, played a role. When the gates of Dachau were opened and the defeated German guards and perpetrators removed, many of the emaciated and sick prisoners, including children, no longer had the strength to leave the barracks or receive food or climb onto truck beds to be taken to medical facilities. To help with this and other tasks, and particularly to communicate with these former prisoners, the American forces brought in refugees from Eastern Europe, such as my father, and other foreigners from the West. Germans from the immediate surroundings were forced to perform repellent work For example, dealing with the piled remains of prisoners, or just cleaning the filthy facilities. When he'd return home, Alex, my 5-year-old brother, my mother and I would barely be able to greet him because he always evaded our hugs. The laundry room had to come first. The large cement-finished room with a huge cauldron built into a wood-burning stove in one corner and generous-sized tubs throughout served as the laundry washing room for the adjoining farm. It was my mother's task to build a fire under the cauldron and get the water ready for my father. Particularly after his first day at the camp, I remember how he came home and almost dove into that laundry room as if to feel the luxury of clean, warm water, a healing for body and for soul. A good supply of lye soap and water heated under my mother's care perhaps would help my father shed his day. Could he then also scrub off the reality of what he had witnessed just a few hours ago? But there was also that practical aspect: lice, fleas, bed bugs, and heavens only knows what invisible else had found a ride on his clothes, shoes, his body, and hair. Vermin were part of the camp environment, and because of his close physical contact with these human beings, of course my father brought pests home. He needed to be rid of them. He never could get them all. Disinfecting chemicals were scarce, but in that stark gray laundry room, and with the help of cascading, almost boiling hot water and strong soap, he tried. So, at that first day's end, while my father soaked and cleaned, in the fading sunlight, my mother, my brother, and I sat on the stone steps of the house and quietly waited. After what seemed an eternity, now dressed in fresh clothes, my father slowly emerged, and like swallows perched on a telephone wire, we all four settled on the hard stoop. Silence followed. Finally, though barely audible, my father's day came sliding out. Like falling tears, drop by drop, he described images, adding, "Niekad neužmiršiu, niekad neužmiršiu." Never will I forget. What he had seen that day was a sea of decrepit humanity, bodies barely moving as if suspended between life and death. Hour after hour, he carried, he held and hugged, he cajoled, he consoled. He accompanied prisoner after prisoner. He did this with all his strength, with all his heart, as was his nature. A story he told. He had walked into a barrack to help yet one more skeletal man to get off his bare pallet. Trying to communicate with him in various languages, my father discovered the man was Lithuanian. Very quickly, they both realized they had known each other in their younger years. Although, as my father said, the now yellowish face of his friend had withered and aged almost beyond recognition. Even as his friend's feeble condition, overjoyed, they grabbed each other and they hugged and they hugged. Quickly, my father carried him to a food station for liquids and a snack. After that, it would be hoisting him onto a truck for transportation to a hospital. My father relived with us the story. The food station seemed like something out of fairy tales, mounds and platters of enticing provisions, some that were totally unfamiliar to him, or which he had barely tasted in years and years. Breads and cheeses, jams, milk, butter, honey, meat, vegetables of all kinds, various fruits, some absolutely exotic. Apparently out of a sense of goodwill, the American Army had provided a profusion of foodstuff, not realizing that a starved body, such indiscriminate quantity and quality, could be toxic. During the early part of the day, my father had watched with sympathy, but also pain as these walking skeletons descended on the abundance of food. And now Jonas, his feeble friend, was also zeroing in. Holding back tears, my father described to us how with all his strength, he grabbed the protruding shoulders of his friend and he pleaded, Yona, palau, silai keep. Jonas, please stop, wait. But no amount of begging could hold him back. For this moment, I have waited an eternity, he whispered. Even if I die, I need to finally be full. Not long after these moments of ecstasy, that same afternoon, cradled in the warmth and comfort of my father's arms, Jonas indeed drew his last breath. But my father's work went on that day and on the following ones as he helped more fading human beings on the way to becoming human again. Now seated on the stoop and surrounded by us, his family, my father breathed the end of his story. I can still see his face resting in his hands, his tears drop into the dust between his feet, each burying a part of his story. Even though all that was a lifetime ago, I can still hear his beseeching voice. All four of us continued to hold each other. The birds in the flowered branches tweeted their lullaby. The last rays of the sun stroked us. So for our family, we had survived. Perhaps the worst was over. Perhaps we would make it. Those final days after the closing stages of the war were tense and fearful for all, foreigners and Germans, in or out of concentration or newly established refugee camps. There were many reasons for that. For my family, and many from Eastern Europe, the immediate dread was from the fact that the Allied forces were vigorously implementing Operation Keelhaul. Ask me sometime more about that. The Yalta Agreement with the Soviet Union had obliged the Allies, that is America, Great Britain and France, to return forced laborers from Eastern Europe, particularly Russians and Ukrainians, to their home country. Americans in military uniform were a formidable presence throughout all the camps, giving directions, shouting orders, and they had the ultimate authority. They could turn against the Eastern European helpers if they felt like it. Because of this agreement, panic ran rampant throughout our communities. Soviet agents hunted down their victims, including concentration camp survivors, and American soldiers forced these handcuffed and beaten young people at gunpoint onto trucks. In those first days, from Dachau alone, this is the concentration camp, some 275 prisoners committed suicide rather than be shipped back to the Soviet Union. My father was a potential target for similar deportation. In the previous summer of 1944, when we were still at home in German annexed Lithuania, he had been conscripted at gunpoint by the German army to dig trenches on the Eastern Front. For that reason, he was considered forced labor and subject to possible deportation. Now, his absence during the day and working under the direct supervision of Americans only added to my mother's constant anxiety. For the rest of his life, my father never talked about his experiences at Dachau. Many years later, he visited Germany, but not Dachau or Ismaning.
Oh my, Ina. That will stay with us a long time. And we'll just hold it close and hold you close. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I want to take just, but I want to stop for just a minute before we end and thank Ina 2017, I looked at my notes. 2017, Ina Bray said, we have a lot of writers in Horizon House. Let's have them read their writing. Ina Bray started this all happening, so I'm so...
You made it happen.
Oh,
You made it happen.
you made it happen.
Oh, God.
Let's hear it for Ina. Thank you so much, Ina. What a
Thank you.
gift.
Thank you.
And look forward to Monday nights at 7, and thanks for your patience with the no audio. Dear Risa is remedying that, and that will be reshown at some point. So thanks for your patience and your cheer. Take care and have a good week.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.